Welcome back. Now, as Nigeria marks Armed Forces Day, attention turns to the sacrifice and service of fallen heroes, including Lieutenant Colonel James Pam, one of the country's foremost military officers who paid the ultimate price during the January 15, 1966 coup. Born in Plateau State, he was among the pioneer officers of the Nigerian Army and served as the first indigenous adjutant general. His life exemplified courage, discipline, and unwavering commitment to national duty. 60 years after his death, Lieutenant Colonel James Pam is remembered not merely for the circumstances of his passing, but for a lifetime devoted to service, honor, and patriotism. As the nation commemorates Armed Forces Day, his legacy continues to inspire today's military to uphold unity, sacrifice, and professionalism, while reminding Nigerians of the enduring cost of peace and nation building. For more on this, son of late Colonel James Pam, Dr. Ibraim Pam, joins me from our Abuja studio. It's a pleasure to have you join us to talk about your father's legacy.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. So how does it make you feel, first as a son and then as a Nigerian, that we're having this conversation about your father?
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm pleased to be here, and thank you very much for inviting me. And just a quick clarification, my title is Mr. I'm not yet a PhD holder. But it's a pleasure to be here to speak about the legacy of my father, Lieutenant Colonel James Yakubu Pam, who was the second indigenous adjutant general after his colleague Yakubu Gowon. But I think it's a worthy tribute at this time on the Remembrance Day to speak of officers who in the line of duty gave their lives for their country, and to reflect on what that means today in contemporary Nigeria.
So as Nigeria marks Armed Forces Day, how important will you say is the legacy of fallen officers like your father, Lieutenant Colonel James Pam, in shaping the values and professionalism of today's armed forces?
Well, yes, the post-independence group of young officers who formed the core of the officer corps Nigerian Army left behind a legacy of professionalism, of dedication, of loyalty, of fidelity to the nation, values that today are still prevalent in the armed forces, values that laid the ground and laid the basis for the current the professional armed forces that Nigeria is proud to have. I think that, in a sense, the symbolism of their service is that it represents, and their sacrifice, is that it represents also the sacrifices of soldiers and officers since then, and even into the present time in Nigeria. And I think it's fitting that we salute these loyal officers and men who have served us and served our nation in the noble profession of the armed forces. And that's what I think the symbolism of the remembrance is every year.
I agree. Now, 60 years, I beg your pardon, has passed since his death. What key lessons should Nigerians draw from the life and sacrifice of Lieutenant Colonel James Pam?
Well, as a son of Lieutenant Colonel James Pam, I am deeply proud of his achievements, his legacy of hard work, of professionalism. He was a dedicated officer who gave his all for the service of his country, chose to join the Nigerian Army and to serve his country in that capacity. He worked diligently in many positions, being the first artillery officer produced by Nigeria, the first military officer from the Middle Belt of Nigeria. He was only the 5th Nigerian to receive the Queen's Commission from the Royal Military Academy in Sandhurst. I think that what he represents and what his fellow officers of the time represent is a time that Nigeria can be extremely proud of. The military and the armed forces as an institution was then and remains even now the bastion of Nigeria's continued existence as a corporate entity and as a state protected around its borders. And that's the legacy, that's what we remember, that our father, who died at the age of 33, today remains alive in the memories of those of us who know him, who knew him, but also of a nation that is grateful for the sacrifices that were made.
Okay, how can the government, the military, and the media work together to ensure that the stories of fallen heroes remain alive in Nigeria's national consciousness? What's your take?
Well, we're grateful for the efforts that the federal government has done in the past and continues to do to keep the memories of these fallen officers alive. Of course, there is, without a shadow of doubt, a lot more that can be done for the institution itself in order to uphold the armed forces as they continue to sacrifice for our country. But with respect to my father, I mean, I think we're grateful that the federal government named a road in Abuja after his memory, along with other officers. Of course, we're saddened to see that road has now been renamed, and we hope that this would be corrected. But we think also that offering or availing to the fallen officers a dignified, honorable burial in a military tradition, which is part of the regimental tradition of the Nigerian Army, would be very welcome. And we hope that the Army will consider to do this as part of their tradition, so that we have a place where we can also pay respects to our fallen parents.
We hope so too. Ibraim Pam, son of late Lieutenant Colonel James Pam, thank you for joining us to discuss your father's legacy.
Thank you.